The unexpected war. No one remembered how it started. Some said the Star Emperor sent ships to Earth because he wanted to test his new weapons. Others said it was because a human ambassador had insulted one of his daughters in public. But the truth didn't matter anymore. The war had already begun, and it was nothing like what anyone expected. The Star Empire had ruled hundreds of worlds. Their technology was powerful. Their soldiers were trained from birth, and their fleets were feared across the galaxy. Earth had none of that. Humans were new to space. They didn't have battle cruisers or plasma cannons. They barely had alliances. Most alien species saw humans as weak, emotional, and unpredictable. They weren't wrong, but they weren't right either. Because humans had something the Empire didn't understand: the will to survive no matter what. When the Empire's ships reached Earth orbit, the first battle was over in minutes. Cities were destroyed. Satellites fell from the sky. Millions died. But Earth didn't surrender. Instead, the humans did something strange. They disappeared. For days, the Empire couldn't find any more military bases. No leaders, no armies. It was like Earth had given up. But they hadn't. In secret, humans were building something. Not a weapon, not a ship, a message. A young engineer named Rael was chosen to deliver it. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't famous. He was just a stubborn human who had lost everything in the first strike: his home, his brother, and his future. Now he had nothing to lose. The message was simple: we are not your enemies, but we will never be your slaves. Come and speak to us if you believe in peace. It was risky. Most thought it was stupid. But the Emperor, to everyone's surprise, agreed. A small diplomatic ship was sent to Earth, not to negotiate, but to mock. And Rael was taken aboard. He didn't wear armor. He didn't bring weapons, just his voice, his eyes, and a strange kind of confidence the aliens didn't understand. When he stepped off the shuttle onto the golden platform of the Star Palace, he saw things most humans would never believe. Floating towers, singing lights, creatures made of crystal. And above all, the Emperor, tall, ancient, with eyes like dying stars. "Why are you here, human?" the Emperor asked. His voice echoed like thunder. "To beg." Rael shook his head. "No, I came to understand." The court laughed. But one person didn't. She was hiding behind the pillars. Her cloak was gray, not gold. Her skin was pale, and her face, it didn't shine like the others. She wasn't beautiful, not by alien standards. Her eyes were too big, her hair too wild. She was one of the unseen, the daughters the Emperor never showed in public. There were 3 of them, born from a mother the Emperor had once loved but later rejected. The court called them failures, useless, hidden away in the palace like secrets no one wanted to remember. But Rael noticed her. He didn't stare. He didn't flinch. He simply nodded to her, the same way he would to anyone else. And in that small moment, everything changed. That night, Rael was locked in a chamber with no windows. He didn't sleep. He knew they didn't trust him. Maybe they never would. But he had planted a seed. In the shadows of the palace, the 3 daughters spoke in whispers. "He looked at me," the oldest said, "like I mattered." "They say humans are monsters," the youngest whispered. But he didn't seem cruel. Maybe he's different," the middle one said softly. "Maybe he's our only chance." Their names were Lyra, Saba, and Vea, and they had been forgotten for too long. But now, they were watching the human closely. And so was the Emperor, because Rael had said something before he was locked away, something that made the ancient ruler pause. "I don't want your throne," he had said. "I want something stronger than power. I want a future. And maybe I'm not the only one." The court didn't understand what he meant, but the daughters did. And so did someone else. In the cold darkness of space, a second fleet was moving toward Earth, not sent by the Emperor, but by his enemies. And they didn't come to talk. They came to destroy everything. Rael had no idea. He thought the worst was over. But the real war was just beginning. The daughters in the shadows. The Star Palace was beautiful, but it was also a cage. The three daughters of the Emperor, Lyra, Sava, and Vea, had never seen the stars beyond the palace walls. They were born in gold but treated like dirt. Their faces were hidden behind veils during public events. Their voices were ignored at the court. The Emperor never introduced them as his children. Not once. They were called the Blemish, not because they were dangerous, but because they weren't perfect. Lyra's skin had strange marks that glowed at night. Sava's voice had a tremble, no matter how calm she was. And Vea, she had sharp eyes and a mind too clever for comfort. She asked too many questions. She made people nervous. No one dared say it out loud, but everyone believed the same thing. They were not fit for marriage, not fit for rule, not fit for legacy. So they were locked away, deeper inside the palace, where even the sunlight felt cold. But that changed the day the human arrived. Rael had only spoken a few words, but he had seen them. Not as shame, not as mistakes, as people. Lyra stood by the window that night, looking at the stars. He looked at me like I wasn't broken. You're not, Sava whispered, sitting on the floor. They're the ones who are blind. Vea said nothing. Her hands were busy, digging into the walls behind her bed. She had discovered an old maintenance tunnel, hidden behind the crystal panels. It was unused, dusty, and perfect. Where does it go? Lyra asked. Everywhere. Vea smiled. Even to the holding chambers. They didn't ask how she knew. Vea had always listened when others thought she wasn't there. The next day, while the court dined in silver halls, Rael sat in silence, under guard, in a dark stone room. There were no windows, no sound, only cold. But then he heard a whisper. Don't move. A panel on the wall slid open. Rael blinked in shock. A girl's face appeared, pale, with bright eyes that scanned the room like a hunter. It was Vea. Do you want to get out? She asked. Depends, Rael replied. Will I be shot? Maybe, she smirked, but not by me. Moments later, he was crawling through a narrow tunnel behind her. The walls were tight. The air smelled of rust, but Rael followed her anyway. He didn't understand why he trusted her. Maybe because she didn't look at him like others did. Maybe because she was just as much a prisoner as he was. Or maybe because something in her eyes said, I'm not afraid of you. They stopped in a small chamber with dim lights. Lyra and Sava were already there. This is crazy, Rael said softly. You're the one who came to talk peace with the warlord. Lyra smiled gently. We're just keeping up. Sava handed him a small piece of cloth. To clean your face, she said. You've got dust everywhere. Rael took it slowly. No one had spoken to him like that since the bombs fell on Earth. He sat down, looked at the three sisters, and asked the question he'd been holding back. Why help me? Vea crossed her arms. Because we're tired of being hidden. Lyra nodded. And because you didn't flinch when you saw us. You looked like you expected us to matter, Sava said quietly. Rael looked around. You do. For a moment, the room was silent. Not awkward, just peaceful. But that didn't last. A deep hum shook the walls. Vea's eyes narrowed. That's not from the palace. Outside, in the black void of space, ships were moving. Fast, silent, and not from the Empire. They bore no symbols, no lights, just deadly shades. In the Senate chamber, alarms began to ring. An enemy fleet had crossed the border. They were known only as the Hollow Ones, beings that took no prisoners, destroyed whole systems, and left nothing behind. They had no face, no voice, no mercy. The Empire had feared them for centuries. Now they were here, and Earth was their first target. Rael stood up. I have to warn them. You can't go back, Vea said. They'll arrest you the moment they see you. I don't care, Rael replied. If they don't know what's coming, Earth will be wiped out. The sisters looked at one another. They had a choice. Stay in the shadows, like always, or stand beside the one person who treated them like they were worth something. Lyra stepped forward. Then we'll go with you. Rael blinked. You'll be hunted. So be it, Sava said, standing beside her. Vea just smiled. Let them come. And just like that, the Emperor's forgotten daughters took their first step into the light. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. But now, the human wasn't alone. And the galaxy would never be the same. Hunted by the Empire, alarms echoed across the palace like thunder. Red lights flashed in the hallways. Guards shouted orders. Shuttles rose into the sky. But deep underground, 4 figures moved through the forgotten tunnels. Quiet, quick, and completely off the radar. Rael, Lyra, Sava, and Vea. A human, and 3 daughters the Empire had chosen to forget. Vea led the way. She knew every turn, every crack, every dead end and secret passage. She didn't speak much, just gave hand signals and moved fast. Sava clung to her datapad, overriding doors before anyone knew they were open. Her hand shook, but she didn't stop. Not once. Lyra kept close to Rael. Her breathing was slow and calm, but her eyes never stopped watching him. Why are you not afraid? She asked quietly, as they ducked into an empty supply chamber. I am, Rael answered. I'm just used to it now. She smiled softly. That's a strange kind of strength. Outside the palace, the skies above the capital turned dark. The Hollow Ones had arrived. Empire fleets launched toward them, but it was too late. The attack was silent, like shadows falling. Massive ships, black and smooth, descended from orbit and pierced the atmosphere without sound. And then came the first blast. A wave of light tore through the sky, bending towers like soft metal and turning airships into dust. The Emperor watched from his command chamber. His face didn't show fear, but his silence did. They strike without warning, one advisor whispered. They do not want conquest, another said. They want erasure. The Emperor said only one thing: find the human. He didn't care about peace now. Rael had escaped. And worse, he had taken them with him. The disgrace, the shame, the daughters who were never meant to be seen. Now, the entire palace knew. Now, the Empire knew. And that could not be forgiven. Back in the tunnels, Rael's group reached the edge of the palace walls. But getting out wasn't simple. Guards were posted at every port. Scanners were online. The exits were blocked. We'll never make it, Sava whispered. We don't need to make it, Vea said, pulling out a strange-looking cube. We need to break it. What is that? Rael asked. An emergency disruptor, she said. Father keeps one hidden in every wing. You stole it. No, she said with a grin. I remembered where it was. She twisted it sharply. A sharp hum buzzed through the air, and the power across the corridor died. Lights shut off. Doors unlocked. The scanners blinked dead. Move, Vea shouted. They ran. Rael's boots slammed against the metal floor. Lyra kept pace beside him. Behind them, they heard shouts. Running footsteps. The chase had begun. But the escape wasn't just a run. It was a statement. The guards didn't see daughters. They saw traitors. The Senate didn't see fugitives. They saw a scandal. And the Emperor saw betrayal. A fast transport waited at the edge of the gardens, half covered in vines and dust. Whose ship is that? Rael asked. Ours now, Vea said. They boarded just as the first group of guards entered the garden. Shots rang out. Stone cracked. Leaves exploded. Rael took the pilot's seat. I don't know how to fly this thing. You'll figure it out, Sava said, strapping herself in. He hit buttons, flipped switches. The ship groaned. Another blast hit the side. Shields dropped to 20%. "Any time now, human," Vaya shouted. Rail growled and slammed his hand on the control stick. The ship roared to life. Engines screamed, and the transport shot into the sky, ripping through clouds and smoke, leaving the palace behind. But not for long. 3 Imperial fighters took off behind them. Rail jerked the controls. The ship rolled hard, nearly flipping. Lyra's hand grabbed the seat beside him. "I believe in you," she said simply. And somehow, that made the chaos quieter. Rail took a deep breath. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a pilot. But he was human. And humans were full of surprises. With sharp turns and wild dives, he dodged one fighter. The second fired, but Sava had hacked the auto-defense system. Twin cannons lit up, blasting the fighter into sparks. The third closed in. Rail braced for impact. And then Vaya launched the disruptor out the back hatch. It exploded near the fighter, not with fire, but with static. The ship's systems died, and it dropped like a rock. Silence. The stars opened before them. They were free. For now. But on the ground, the Emperor stared at the sky. His voice was low and cold. "Call the Senate," he said. "Tell them everything." One advisor hesitated. Even about everything. Because the human had done more than escape. He had made a choice. He had taken the forgotten, the unwanted, the rejected, and lifted them into the stars. Now, the Senate would decide what came next. But Rail didn't care. He wasn't running. He was heading straight for Earth. And he wasn't alone anymore. The Senate's judgment. The Galactic Senate had not met in person for over 100 years. They didn't need to. Most decisions were made by vote across systems, sent through secure transmissions and artificial minds. The senators ruled from behind glass screens and golden walls. But now, something had changed. The Star Emperor had made a request. Not a vote. Not a message. A demand. And when the Star Emperor made a demand, you showed up. In the center of the Council Moon, the Senate Hall opened its gates for the first time in a century. Giant pillars reached toward the sky, glowing with soft light. Hundreds of beings, tall, short, scaled, soft, glowing, and dark, took their seats around a great circle. In the middle of it all, under a beam of cold light, stood the Emperor. And beside him, an empty seat. "The human has stolen my daughters," he announced. His voice was sharp, but calm. He escaped justice. He broke the laws of diplomacy. And he has infected royal blood with his defiance. Gasps, whispers, silent looks exchanged across the room. A senator from the Syriac League stood. Her body shimmered like water. "You speak of infection, but I see something else. The daughters you hid from us now act with courage. Maybe the infection is hope." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "You would praise a thief." "I praise action," she replied. Another senator rose, his voice cold. "Humans are unpredictable. They disobey every order. They risk everything on emotion. The fact that he's with your daughters is a threat to stability." The Senate began to argue. Some called Rail a criminal. Others saw him as a symbol. Some wanted him dead. Others wanted to speak with him. But no one ignored him. And that was the Emperor's real fear. For the first time, the spotlight had shifted, not toward power or bloodline, but toward someone from the edge of nowhere, a human with no army, no rank, no planet behind him, just a heart that refused to bow. Far from the Senate, Rail's ship dropped into orbit above Earth. The planet below looked bruised. Cities still burned from old battles. Smoke curled into the sky. He stared at it from the cockpit, quiet. Lyra stood beside him. "You're home." "It doesn't feel like it," he said. Sava entered from the back. "We picked up a transmission. It's from the Senate. They want to talk to you." Rail turned. "Me?" Vea smiled. Looks like you've become someone important. He laughed bitterly. All I wanted was to stop the war. Maybe you're doing more than that, Lyra said gently. Rael sat down. What if they don't listen? Sava shrugged. Then we make them. And that was the moment Rael stopped being just a survivor. He became a problem for the galaxy. A day later, Rael stood before a massive screen, broadcasting his image to the entire Senate. He wasn't wearing armor. He didn't stand on ceremony. He just looked into the camera and spoke. My name is Rael. I am human. I came to the Empire not to fight, but to find a way to live without killing each other. You attacked us, one senator replied. You stole royal blood. No, Rael said. I gave it a future. The room went quiet. He continued, voice steady. I didn't plan any of this. I didn't even expect to live past the first meeting. But I saw something the Empire didn't want me to see. The daughters you threw away. They have minds, hearts, and dreams. And they chose me, not the other way around. A senator growled. Do you expect us to believe this was love? Rael didn't blink. No, I expect you to understand this was a choice. Their choice. And mine. Lyra, Sava, and Vea stood behind him, visible for the first time on any Senate record. The crowd buzzed with disbelief. They speak? One whispered. They stand tall. There, not what I imagined. The Emperor rose. They are still mine, and I will not allow this shame to stand. Rael stepped forward. Then maybe your shame is not them, but how you treated them. The Emperor said nothing, but his silence was louder than war. The Senate was split. Old rules said Rael should be punished. The daughters returned, the human exiled. But new voices were rising. Younger senators, new species, ones who had tasted human fire and human kindness. One senator said, let the people decide. Another added, perhaps it is time to rethink what royalty means. And just like that, something shifted. The Emperor had come for revenge. Instead, he started a conversation that could shake the Empire. Rael turned off the transmission and sat down. What now? Vea asked. Rael looked toward Earth's broken sky. Now, he said softly, we wait. And far above, in the dark, cold space between stars, the Hollow Ones watched. They didn't care about politics. They didn't care about love. They only wanted silence. And they were coming. Heirs of chaos. The stars looked peaceful from orbit, but peace was always a lie before the storm. Inside the ship, silence hung like fog. Rael sat alone in the engine room, staring at the small flame flickering from a broken heat core. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just listened to the quiet hum of metal and the storm inside his mind. He was no hero. He was a mechanic, a survivor, a man who had made one wild choice and now carried the weight of a galaxy on his shoulders. Footsteps approached. It was Lyra. She sat beside him, her long cloak brushing the floor. Her eyes were soft, but her face was strong. You stopped the war, she said. Rael shook his head. No, I just paused it. Lyra placed her hand near his. And sometimes, a pause is all people need to start breathing again. He finally looked at her. Do you regret this? He asked, leaving everything behind. She smiled faintly. There was nothing to leave behind. Not really. We were never daughters. Just symbols, trophies, secrets. She looked into his eyes. You gave us names again. Rael felt her words burn through the weight he carried. He didn't know what this was, love, duty, fate, but whatever it was real. And it terrified him. Across the ship, Sava worked over a glowing console. She was tracing a signal, one that didn't belong. A strange pulse, rhythmic, cold, and growing stronger. Someone's tracking us, she said into the comms. Vea appeared behind her. Empire. Sava shook her head. Worse. The Hollow Ones had found them. They weren't just drifting through space anymore. They were being hunted. Rael and Lyra rushed to the bridge. A screen lit up with an approaching shadow. No lights, no colors, just black, like space itself had torn open and death had stepped through. Distance? Rael asked. 3 minutes, Sava answered. No weapons, Vea added. We can't outrun it. Rael slammed his fist on the control panel. There has to be something. And then, something impossible happened. The hollow ship didn't fire. It stopped. Right in front of them. No signal, no voice, just silence. Then, a light formed on their screen. Not an image. A message. The CEDHAA's BEE implanted. Everyone froze. What does it mean? Lyra whispered. No one knew. But Vea had guessed first. They think we've done their work for them. Rael frowned. What work? Chaos, she said softly. Breaking the old order. Making the mighty fight among themselves. They didn't need to destroy the empire. They just needed someone to shake it. And they had. Rael's bond with the daughters had broken the image of perfection. It had made the Senate question the emperor. It had exposed truths hidden for generations. But that wasn't all. Rael looked at Lyra. She looked back. Something else had changed. Something deeper. The Hollow Ones weren't just watching the political scandal. They were watching the birth of something new. Lyra placed a hand over her stomach. She said nothing. But Rael understood. His breath caught. Is it? She nodded once. Life. Real life. Something no one in the empire expected. A human father. An imperial heir. Born of choice, not arrangement. Born of something forbidden. Vea's voice cracked through the comms. The hollow ship is gone. Just like that. Gone. They didn't want us, Sava said slowly. They just wanted to see us. Rael stood in the center of the bridge. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, They see us now. The whole galaxy does. He looked at the 3 daughters. Lyra, carrying a future. Sava, decoding signals faster than machines. Vea, burning with the mind of a warrior and the heart of a rebel. They were no longer hidden daughters. They were something else. Something the galaxy didn't yet understand. Something it feared. Rael turned toward Earth. If the Senate wants answers, we give them truth. And if they want war? Vea asked. Rael's voice didn't shake. Then we show them what chaos really looks like. Voices that cannot be silenced. The broadcast started as a whisper. A quiet voice from a forgotten corner of Earth. A teenage girl speaking from the ruins of her school, face lit by a flickering candle. My brother died the day the sky caught fire. He was only 11, but he said one thing before the bombs fell. He said, maybe one day, aliens will see us as people. That single video spread across Earth in less than an hour. Then to the outer colonies. Then to the space stations orbiting forgotten moons. And then, it reached the Senate. For the first time, Earth was not screaming. It was speaking. Not with threats, but with truth. Rael watched it from the ship's comm station, eyes locked on the screen. Lyra stood behind him, a hand on her belly. Sava sat nearby, stunned into silence. Vea didn't blink once. She's not a soldier, Rael whispered. No, Lyra replied. She's more powerful than that. Over the next day, thousands of voices rose. Miners, farmers, orphans, teachers, mechanics, humans from every walk of life, sharing pain, stories, loss, and hope. They didn't beg. They dared to be heard. And the galaxy listened. Even alien worlds that had once ignored Earth began to ask questions. Why was the Star Emperor so afraid of one human and 3 daughters? What kind of power were they hiding? And most important, what if the future needed to look different? Back in the Senate hall, The mood was shifting. The Emperor's rage could no longer control the room. One of the senators stood up, a reptilian creature from a neutral trade world. "This is not about war anymore," she said. "This is about legacy. And we are standing in the way of something bigger than any of us." Others murmured in agreement. But the Emperor stood still, eyes burning. "She carries my blood," he said, "and I will not allow it to be mixed with filth." The chamber froze. No one spoke, because everyone knew he wasn't just talking about politics. He was talking about purity, about bloodlines, control, fear of change. And now he had said it out loud. The veil was lifted. In a quiet chamber far below, the oldest Senate archivist, an alien over 300 years old, spoke to her apprentice. "When history changes, it always starts like this," she whispered. "One voice, then many, until even emperors fall quiet." Rael, unaware of the shift, stared at his screen. Another video was playing. This time, it wasn't from Earth. It was from a hidden base in the Outer Rim, a species long thought neutral, silent, cold. Now, they spoke. "We once feared the human mind, its fire, its chaos. But now we see it as light. That which grows also burns. That which burns also warms." It was a poem, a message, a declaration. Sava turned to Rael. "You've started something that can't be undone." "I didn't mean to," he said. Vea shook her head. "Doesn't matter. It's already moving." But then, a warning signal lit up on the console. One ship, Imperial class. And behind it, 30 more. A full war fleet. Lyra's hand tightened on Rael's arm. "He's coming." Rael nodded. "The Emperor." The ship's comms opened. A voice rang through, not sharp, not cold. Calm. Controlled. "Rael of Earth, you are summoned. Come alone, or your world will burn." No threats. Just certainty. The kind only tyrants carry. Rael looked at the others. "I have to go." "No," Lyra said. "You're not going alone," Vea added. Rael looked at her, then Sava. They were all shaking, but none stepped back. He sighed. "Then let's finish this. Together." Back on Earth, more voices rose. The people had spoken. Now it was time for the Emperor to listen. The choice that shook the stars. The sky above Earth turned red. 31 ships, each the size of cities, hovered like silent gods. The Star Emperor's fleet had arrived. No warnings, no demands. Only one message was sent. Rael must come. Alone. And now he was doing exactly that. Rael stood at the center of a glowing platform aboard the lead Imperial dreadnought. Around him, cold steel. Empty silence. Shadows. Behind thick glass, the Emperor watched. Not angry. Not surprised. Just waiting. "Bring the daughters," the Emperor said to his guards. They were led into the room. Lyra, Sava, and Vea. Still proud, still unbroken, but now fully known by the galaxy. Rael stepped forward. "You wanted me. I'm here." The Emperor stared at him. "You think you're a hero." Rael shook his head. "No, I'm just human." "A mistake," the Emperor said. Rael smiled. "Funny. That mistake has made your entire Senate question you." The Emperor rose from his seat. His armor glowed with ancient runes. His cape flowed like living flame. "You broke every rule," he said. "No," Rael replied. "I exposed them." The room went quiet. Even the guards shifted. Then Lyra spoke. "You called us daughters in secret, but in public, we were shame." Sava added, "You hid us, controlled us." Vea stepped forward. "But you can't unsee us now." The Emperor's voice dropped. Silence. But they didn't stop. "You ruled with fear," Rael said. "But people are tired. They want truth. They want choice." You chose filth, the Emperor roared. Rael stepped closer, slow and steady. I chose freedom, and they chose me. Then Rael reached into his coat and pulled out a tiny object, a simple data drive. The Emperor narrowed his eyes. What is that? A vote, Rael said. What? I sent a message to the Senate, to Earth, to the colonies, to neutral systems. Anyone who believed in change was asked one question. Should rule come from blood or from choice? He tossed the drive onto the Emperor's throne. It holds the results. The Emperor didn't move. But the room changed. Holograms flickered to life. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Thousands. Citizens. Soldiers. Leaders. Children. Each saying the same word. Choice. 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 The Star Emperor stood frozen. For the first time. Outnumbered. Rael stepped beside Lyra. Took her hand. We don't need your crown, he said. We don't need your palace. We've already won. Lyra placed Rael's hand gently on her stomach. She is your blood, she said to the Emperor, and she will never be hidden. The Emperor's lips trembled. No rage, no scream, just silence. He turned away and left the chamber. He didn't order an attack. He didn't give a speech. He simply disappeared into the ship's halls, alone with the weight of an empire crumbling behind him. Rael looked at the guards. They didn't raise their weapons. Instead, they stepped back and let him pass. Back on Earth, the people waited. When Rael's ship returned, it wasn't with a war. It was with a story of daughters who stood tall, of a human who refused to kneel, and of a galaxy that finally chose to listen. Lyra gave birth months later, not in a palace, not in hiding, but on a grassy hill on Earth, under the open sky. They named the child Hope. She had eyes like stars, and the fire of two worlds inside her.